Yo, what up, players? This is Matt here with Just for Fun. We're going to play some modern. What I've done is another port of my Stompy deck. You know, I love playing Stompy and Pauper. I think it's just balls out, fun deck to play. It's competitive in that format. And it's budgety, it's powerful, it's explosive. It does a lot of cool stuff. And basically, it's kind of like Infect or Burn or, Kiln Fiend in a way. It's just, a flurry of spells. It's like a combo aggro kind of plan where your goal is to just attack and use pump spells to finish your opponent off from a higher life total than they would expect. Typically, it's kind of like a burn deck in how it plays, except the creatures are way more efficient. However, you're trading removal spells for pump spells, which are not as versatile in some senses. You can't use them for removal. You can, in a sense, but it opens you up to, being 2-for-1, stuff like that. So, how do we get around that? How did I port the deck for modern? Is this an ideal build? No. This is a super budget build, which is what I'm liking lately. There's a lot of play to it anyway. I think it's very fun, very fun to play. I'll go over some of the choices and some of the things I didn't choose and why. Okay, lands. We've got 20 lands. Basically, 4 mostly basic forests, 4 heaths. And the reason I'm playing the heaths, there's 2 reasons. One is Dryad Arbor. I picked one of these up. I thought it's just, a very versatile card. It can go in a lot of decks. It's if I have the fetch lands already, it's nice to be able to fetch out a threat later in the game, making one of these like less of a dead draw. So, I figure why not? I'll play with that. And also the fetches are there for Become Immense to help fuel your graveyard for the purposes of Delve, and this just, is a kill people out of nowhere card. I played it in the standard version of this deck, and it was the best card in the deck, every time. Well, except for Aspect of Hydra. Now, this card is just bonkers insane. This card is frequently 1 mana for 10 damage. It's just an insane card. So I really wanted to maximize Aspect of Hydra in the deck. So my plan for that, well, to maximize the pump spells. So these are the pump spells I chose. Aspect, thrives on green devotion. So I wanted to pick creatures with a lot of green mana symbols. And also I didn't want to get blown out when I cast this, so I wanted creatures that had hexproof, so they were hard to be removed mid-combat, right? Become Immense for the same reason. Now I chose Mutagenic Growth also because it's a free pump spell. It works really well with Become Immense because you could pay life for this. It goes into your yard, pumps your creature 2, and makes Become Immense cost 1 less. So if you have a bunch of things in your hand, you can dump this while you're going off, as it were, and hopefully kill your opponent for cheaper. Rancor is just, I love this card. Every time I build a deck with green mana in it and creatures, I just want to put this card in it because it's just so good. It's so powerful. One mana for 2 damage is, always a fair trade, but this always ends up being more than 2 damage, and it comes back until somebody can really get rid of it. Works really well, again, with decks that want to attack and with hexproof creatures. It's just all around excellent card. Finally, as a trick and a pump spell sort of, is Hunger of the Howlpack. And the reason I put a couple of these in here is because A, nobody ever expects it, so they don't play around it, and it goes really well with creatures that have Undying. because you don't mind trading off your dudes if you're going to play 1 mana to get 3 permanent counters on something, especially something with hexproof. You know, just turn something into a threat that wasn't a threat before. So this goes really well with Dryad Arbor and a couple of the other creatures I'm going to tell you about. So what creatures did I choose for my Stompy deck here? Well, Young Wolf I just swapped right out of the Pauper deck. It's a deceivingly good card. Like, this card is much better than it looks on the surface of it. You know, nobody likes vanilla 1 mana 1/1s, but this is a 1/1 that can, you know, potentially trade with a 2/1 or something like that, and then come back as a 2/2 and still be a threat. When this comes back, it evolves your Experiment 1, which is nice. When this dies, it triggers Hunger of the Howl Pack, which is nice. So you can put Rancor on Young Wolf, attack into something, maybe get 1 point of damage through, get Rancor back, get Young Wolf back as a 2/2, put Rancor back on it, put Hunger of the Howl Pack on it. Now you have a giant monster. Bogle, I just put a couple of these to fill out the 1-drop slot because I wanted another couple dudes with hexproof in order to protect our Fatal Pump spells. Speaking of hexproof, in the 2-drop slot, you might recognize her from the standard Stompy deck, Basara Tower Archer. This card has overperformed every time I've played it. It is way better than it looks on the surface. Double green mana symbols serving to better pump aspect of Hydra. Hexproof protecting it, getting in there for 2 damage. Reach is, you know, could be borderline applicable at some point, but in this deck, if you're blocking, you're losing. You don't want to be blocking. So, great thing to put Hunger of the Howl Pack counters on. Great thing to suit up with Rancor. Just works. Strangleroot Geist is like Young Wolf, but better. Does everything Young Wolf does, but hasty, and comes back bigger. Comes back, you know, evolving Experiment 1, right? This guy works great with Hunger of the Howl Pack. I had a play where I blew somebody out by casting that just to put the second counter on this to be able to regenerate it, and, you know, trade off and still regenerate. I mean, it just, you know, pretty good creature. Another one that on the face of it, you know, seems a lot worse than it really is. In the 3-drop slot, this is where I would possibly make some changes. I didn't even bother, to be honest with you, I didn't look through every single 3-drop. Again, for me, budget is a huge concern. So I wanted to play with things that were inexpensive. So Leatherback Baloth is just, if you're playing Mono Forest, why not? Why not play a 3 mana 4/5 that's always a 3 mana 4/5 that always gives +3 to your aspect of Hydra, that wears a Rancor really well, that, you know, with 5 toughness gets around a lot of removal spells. Yeah, this is a good card. It's not the best card, but it's good. It does its job as a 3-drop, I have to say, and it's a powerful threat in this deck. It's done wonders for me. So Boon Satyr is good. It's a nice surprise threat. It can you can come in at instant speed and evolve Experiment 1 out of nowhere. You know, if you ever get to 5 mana, you could cast it on, you know, your hexproof guy, pumping your hexproof guy. In this spot, my original intention was to play Dungrove Elder, and honestly, I just couldn't find any of them online. All the sites that, you know, all the bots that were supposed to be trading them didn't have them. I just couldn't find them anywhere. So, hold on one sec. My daughter was just saying goodnight to me. Good night, baby! So yeah, that's the main deck. If I could find some Dungrove Elders, I would test them too. You know, most of the time you don't end up with more than like 4, maybe 5 lands in play, so they're not going to be huge Dungrove Elders, but just the hexproof makes them so much harder to deal with, and the Boon Satyrs are pretty easy to just eat a bolt or something like that. So if somebody has those, they could trade me or borrow me to me, whatever. You know, I'd much appreciate it, and I will, you know, replay the deck with that too, just to see what's better. Sideboard. Finally figured out the name of this card. Gleeful Sabotage that I couldn't figure out the name of it forever, that I want to be in all my Stompy decks, because it's okay. Worst case scenario, it's sorcery speed naturalize, which is not horrible. Like, you could sideboard that in your limited deck and you'd be okay. Best case scenario, you kill 2 artifacts and enchantments for 2 mana, by tapping your creatures, which you're always going to have creatures in play in this deck. If you don't have any creatures, you're going to just concede anyway, because that's the way your deck wins. It's just, but you have 27 creatures in the deck. So, now, I love this in Pauper. I loved siding this in against Affinity and like blowing up a land and a Mirror Enforcer or something ridiculous like that. So I'm envisioning similar blowout scenarios potentially in Modern. I haven't completed my sideboard yet. I'm still tossing around a lot of ideas. Mostly I had these growths here against Lightning Bolt decks. Hunger of the Howlpack also against decks that you expect to remove your creatures, at which point like Aspect and Become Immense seem more dangerous than Value, or maybe Rancor might not be as good there. Prey Upon is great in creature mirrors, and here's why this card works really well in this deck. You can cast a pump spell on your dude, prey upon their blocker, and then get in there for damage without worrying about your creature trading off potentially. You can prey upon with your Strangleroot or Young Wolf on their whatever, and you don't care if it dies because it's going to come back with a counter anyway. So all in all, just really, I love this card. Efficient green removal spell. Great card, underplayed. I feel this is way more powerful than it gets credit for. Anyway, I'm gonna try to play a few matches with this. It's really a blast. You can see there's a smile on my face. I'm excited. I'm hyper already. Hopefully we'll get a good match or two and I can show you what the deck can do.